of the All the Books show, normally recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library, where we talk book news, author news, and literary news. I'm Eric Michaels.
I'm Nic Gunning, and this is an episode of All the Books Nights. I like night episodes. There's a different energy.
Yeah.
You're a little tired, you're a little grumpy.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
You could technically say we've been at work for about 12 hours at this point.
Yes, you could, if you were a grumpy old lady like you.
What? You're the grumpy old man.
Stop. All right, let's get along.
Okay.
Serenade.
Do you say tomato?
I actually say tomato.
Let's call the whole thing ham.
Fine. What? Oh, it's kooky. All the Books Nights. We got a lot to get into today. I'm excited today because we have an interview with Mr. Mel Gilden. Mel Gilden, the author of many things. I knew him primarily from his work with 90210 and Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Star Trek was the first of his books that I read, and I'm a fan. So we reached out to Mel to talk to him about his work, and he was pleased to chat with us, so that's coming up a little bit later in the episode, so hope you stick around for that. Right now, let's get in the old bookmark, and this is going to be an expanded bookmark, Eric, because a lot of stuff was going on, because I think we lump in some movies in here.
Okay.
Let's talk movies first. Let's talk movies first.
Lump them in.
Eric and I were at the NYLA conference this past week. So
Shout out to the New York Library Association.
I really was impressed that you had it, but yes.
Is that it?
Yes, I want to thank our friends at the Southern Tier Library System because I was awarded a scholarship to go. And so they covered that, so thanks to STLS. Yeah. Eric came along. We saw a lot of past employees of both the library system and our library in particular, so nice to reconnect there. We attended a lot of conferences. There was a trade show going on. This is just a time for librarians across the state to come together, exchange ideas, and just kind of, it's always nice to know that other people are doing similar things and sort of in the same position that you are. So we were at the NYLA conference in Saratoga Springs, and the first night we got there, we checked in, we were all set, and we had some time to kill, so we went to see Dr. Sleep.
Did we see Dr. Sleep night one?
Yeah, we did.
What a long week that was.
I know it was. Dr. Sleep, of course, adapted from the novel Dr. Sleep by Stephen King.
Oh, that was a cold night.
It was a very cold night.
It's all coming back now. Yeah.
Sequel to The Shining. So Eric and I differ quite a bit on The Shining. You can go back into the All the Books archives at soundcloud.com/allthebooks or wherever you get your podcasts and find our book, our episode Shining a Light on Stephen King, King Spotlight, where we talk about The Shining and other things. But basically, in a nutshell, I'm a big fan of the book. I find the movie interesting, but I think it's a terrible adaptation of the book. Eric doesn't care for anything Shining related.
That's true.
Correct?
I didn't like the book. Thought it was too long.
Yep.
And I'm surprised that so early in his career, they're like, no need for an editor. Don't hold this kid back. And
Whereas movie, I find the book rich and deep and exploring a lot of interesting issues. And
the movie, I guess I understand on like an intellectual level why it's hailed the way it is.
Yeah.
But it is not for this guy over here.
Understood.
Myself.
Understood.
It's very still frame.
We also, as we've discussed, we have a history of reading a Stephen King book every Halloween, and one year it was Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep.
And I feel like you responded more to the Dr. Sleep book.
The Shining was part of like a group book club that we were doing with a bunch of other people. But then after a few rough patches, it kind of dissolved. And
I blame Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah,
that kind of killed everyone in that
Pillars
book
of the Earth kind of killed it. And then you were like, well, let's read Dr. Sleep still. I'm like, how did this... I think I was sitting down, I'm like, time to read this spooky book I found. You're like, let's do Dr. Sleep. I'm like, darn it!
Yeah. Thank you, man. That was good friending. But you like Dr. Sleep.
I ended up liking Dr. Sleep, the book, more than I ended up liking the Shining book.
Yeah.
Because, and I talked about this with the Institute, I felt like Dr. Sleep was much more of like a superhero comic booky book on it all.
That's true.
Specifically whenever we're not dealing with Danny's alcoholism.
Yes.
Which was thankfully cut down to a manageable level in the movie. Yeah. But in the... anytime we were dealing with Abra and her like psychic powers, I'm like, oh, okay.
So the book basically follows a grown-up Danny Torrance. The book and movie follows a grown-up Danny Torrance, the kid from the original Shining, and a parallel story with a girl named Abra who has similar Shining-esque powers. And then the third through line in that is the True Knot, which are basically vampires who feed on The Shining.
Yeah.
The book is pretty good. It does need an editor. I'll acknowledge that. The movie, I feel like, does a really nice job of condensing the things that you can live without. Yeah. And I also, without getting too much into it, the ending of the movie differs significantly from the book in a good way. I really think the changes made to the ending of that were for the good. Yeah. And it kind of goes the extra mile of incorporating a lot of the original ending of the Shining book, which was thrown out for the movie, into the movie of Dr. Sleep. So that's very convoluted, I know. But I think you get a great performance from Ewan McGregor. It's spooky. I think Abra's very well cast. I think the movie's a ride. I think it's very good.
Did you say a riot?
A ride.
Oh, okay. I just think you said a ride.
No, it was just one where I was just kind of like, well, let's do this, you know?
Okay.
Did you
I wouldn't use ride to describe it because it's about 2.5 hours long, and the movie is connected to the Shining movie.
Yeah.
It's a sequel to the Shining movie that's using the book as its main source material, but it is still just like The Shining 2, Stanley Kubrick's Shining 2.
Yes, yeah.
But so Dr. Sleep, the movie, is a lot more, as opposed to like a ride, it's a lot more like thoughtful, not meandering, but like the scenes take their time. Nothing's rushing through it, even though it's a lot is going on. So I think it delves more into I don't know, it's more of a character piece than you might be expecting.
Yeah,
I didn't find it too spooky. I guess I just found it as kind of like a really dark character driven movie rather than like a horror film. I wouldn't suggest going to see Dr. Sleep expecting like a horror film, and I think if you watch The Shining as a horror film, Dr. Sleep is probably going to disappoint you because of that, because it still takes a lot of like and now everybody's psychic kind of stuff, but there's some pretty brutal scenes in there that cause Nick to turn away.
It's definitely
or look on his phone.
It earns its R rating. Yeah, it does.
So we have a shared friend, a friend that we would say we're both friends with.
Yes.
That's Sally, previous guest.
Yeah, the Queen of Halloween.
I have no idea if she'll like this movie.
Sally Murphy, director of Hammond's for
I imagine that she'll hate this movie.
I kind of tend to agree
because
with you.
it's a sequel to a film she holds up, to great esteem.
We'll need to
check
check in with Sally on this. Absolutely.
I think if you like Dr. Sleep the book, and if you like Shining the book, you will like Dr. Sleep the movie.
Okay.
Do you think if, like, there are plenty of people who haven't because it came out in the 70s. Do you think if you haven't seen The Shining, you're going to do okay at Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, I do think so. I do think so. I think they give you enough to understand what's going on. I think it works as a standalone. It's certainly better if you know The Shining, but I think it does work.
Okay.
I saw 2 other movies. Would you like to hear about them?
Maybe. It depends on the movies.
The first was
We Have Fun at Nights.
Motherless Brooklyn, based on the novel by Jonathan Lethem. So this is written and directed by Ed Norton, and I thought it was excellent.
You know how you get Motherless Brooklyns?
How?
Brooklyns having Brooklyns.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you going to do? So yes, it stars Ed Norton. You got Alec Baldwin in there. Willem Dafoe in a great performance. I thought Willem Dafoe was really excellent in it. And it is, it's about a detective in the 50s who has Tourette's. And he's not really the lead detective, but when things change, he kind of has to take center stage, and so he has to kind of work through those issues and figure out this plot that his mentor has kind of left behind for him to figure out. It's a long movie. It's a movie that requires patience, I think. You know, if you really have to kind of... It's a sit, but I think in a good way. I don't think that you would particularly enjoy it. But
How dare you? I love the 50s.
I think fans of 50s and noir movies and detective stories, I think there's a lot here. A great performance from Ed Norton.
Set in the 50s?
It is set in the 50s, which is interesting because the novel came out in the 90s and was just set contemporary. But my son interviewed with Ed Norton where he felt like, you know, just the style of it really was kind of a callback to that 50s noir, and so the movie is set there. And I think it's better for it.
You saw an interview with Ed Norton?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said your son interviewed Ed Norton. I'm like, your 5-year-old son interviewed Ed Norton?
I think he'd do a good job.
That'd be very funny. He's like, I thought we should change it to the 50s. Oh, really?
Yeah, that is what he would do. And then I saw Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh, okay. You can get out of my house.
Why?
No, you're fine. You can stay.
What do you think I'm going to say? I liked it or didn't like it? You're mad because I had a good time at Terminator Genesis. Just say it.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. Say your thing about Terminator. I don't even know which we're talking about. Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. Okay.
You want to know what the real Dark Fate was?
What?
3 sequels after Terminator 2.
2. So I think basically, if you never want to watch Terminator 3 or Terminator Salvation or Terminator Genesis, and you just go 1, 2, and Dark Fate, you're fine. Because it really is more of a sequel to that. And that's kind of where it shines and also where it struggles. Because, I mean, the big thing is it's cool to see Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger team up and play those characters again. They do it well. Linda Hamilton plays an excellent... war-torn Sarah Connor. There's some really great, I don't even know how they did it, but a scene set in the 90s where you see the Edward Furlong version of John Connor. You see a young Linda Hamilton, a young Schwarzenegger. Done very well. The movie, though, then becomes a little bit too beat-for-beat Terminator 2. And it suffers in the comparison. There are a lot of action scenes that I think are really unique and make the movie stand out. And it's fun. It's a good time. But it, to me, really kind of drove home that Terminator just doesn't have anything else to say. So for the nostalgia of it, I think it's a good watch once. I don't think if you're a big fan of Terminator 2 and you've been waiting for a payoff, I don't think that this is going to be the thing where you're like, finally! Yeah. But it is fun. You going to see it?
I don't know.
Okay. Here's some of the books that I read. I read The Evolution of Claire by Tess Sharp here at the David A. Howe Public Library. We're in the midst of Dino-Vember. So Eric and I are reading The Evolution of Claire, which is set in between... I messed this up last time. Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World.
Right.
Set right in between there.
Yeah.
I will say for it, there's a decent amount of Jurassic Park style action that you want, and a lot more continuity with the Jurassic Park franchise than I was expecting. So
I do love Jurassic Park continuity.
You're such a fan. I just don't know how this is going to sit for you.
Maybe I'll love it.
Maybe you will.
Yeah.
I'm curious to find out. Okay. I enjoyed it. I read some graphic novels. I read, thanks to Eric and the Marvel Unlimited app, I read some of the Unstoppable Wasp.
We teamed up for the force of good this week.
Jeremy Whitley's Unstoppable Wasp. I think it suffers from the same fate as your Amazing Spider-Man franchise, where it's like, just start your story and stop setting up your story.
That's the problem with all these comic book reboots. It's like you have to spend 6 issues to explain why you have this series, then you have 6 issues to rush to the ending because you got canceled.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. And then I read the Green Lantern Archive. So this is like way retro. Green Lantern #1 and his tryout in the showcase.
What
title.
Condition was it in?
Mint.
Ooh.
Mint. Yeah. This was. It's either you like and can get into retro comics or you can't.
Yeah.
And so this was hit and miss. There was enough.
Is this like 50s then?
Yeah. There was enough there to enjoy. I'm glad to have read it, but it was nothing that was like, whoa.
Right. So this is like Green Lantern 1, like DC before like the Marvel Silver Age started with like Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. This is not Alan Scott Green Lantern. This is like the proper Hal Jordan series beginning. Okay. But it was just okay. And then I'm currently reading, I can't even remember. I'm reading Cross Current, a Star Wars book for my...
I've always had my eye on that one.
Yeah, it's been good so far.
Because it's a time travel one.
Yeah, it is. And it's the first part of a duology. It's Cross Current and then Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. I'm doing this for my sci-fi book club that I do with some friends. Our previous entry was Starship Trap by Mel Gilden, who we're going to be talking to later today.
Goodness.
So that's what I'm reading right now. And then also Little Women for our Christmas book club that we have coming up. And Trinity, Volume 1, Better Together. This is the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman graphic novel in the Rebirth era. And it's fine so far. Boy, that was a lot of me talking. So spotlight's on my man, Eric.
All right.
What do you got?
I saw Star Trek Dark Fate. It ignores the... No. 7 Star Trek films after the third Star Trek. Oh, wait, I just clicked on Goodreads Home, but you're logged into Goodreads on my computer.
Oh, you're right.
I'm going to have fun with that after you leave.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read Star Wars Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Volume 3 and 4, because I had apparently read Volumes 1 and 2 a while ago. I knew I read Volume 1, but I didn't realize I had read Volume 2. And I had. And I remember it all now. But, good stuff. Always sad stuff. I feel like whenever Vader... I don't know. Vader's stories are always just like, I'm always just struck by like how lonely and sad and pathetic his life is now. So very self-destructive when you look into the character like that. At one point, anytime he's like dealing with Padme, it's like, you did this yourself, you dummy.
Right.
I read Tom King's Batman Volume 8, 9, and 10. 8 was really good, 9 was okay, 10 was stupid. Apparently Batman's stuck in his nightmares right now. In Volume 10, I didn't realize how we got there.
Okay.
And also, it's just a lot of Catwoman stuff. I tell you what, if the only way to really be enjoying this Tom King Batman run is to divorce any knowledge you have about Tom King outside of the comics when he's talking about it, or like even flipping over to the back with like Tom King's defining Batman run. I'm like, you can't say it during.
Yeah.
You have to wait.
You need time.
So
history will decide.
Yes. So anyway, I also read East of West, Volume 1 by Jonathan Hickman.
Oh, I don't know.
This volume was The Promise. This is about the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are coming back.
It's not what I thought you were going to say.
It's a Western. Death was... They tried to kill Death, and now Death is on his own and trying to find his kid because his wife doesn't want to be with him anymore.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's a weird book, but I kind of dug it. I got Volume 2. I also read... I read Star Wars Vader, Dark Visions. This is like 6 issues of anthology stories of... This is the one with the cover where Darth Vader's on a horse with a shield. Just these individual stories of like people interacting with Darth Vader. Varying quality. Some were okay. Others were weird. I also read Paper Girls Volume 6, which ends Paper Girls forever. I read Outer Space and All That Junk by Mel Gilden.
How did you feel about Paper Girls?
I actually was less enthused with this volume than I've been like the whole series. It was very chatty.
Would you recommend the series?
Yeah.
That's where I struggle.
I would still recommend Paper Girls.
All right.
And maybe they would benefit from being able to just binge it.
Oh, absolutely.
But I definitely thought for like the end, it was way more chatty than it had to be. And I also read Star Wars Clone Wars Volume 6, On the Fields of Battle. I read the first 5 volumes of this back in Florida. So like back in like 2014.
Years ago. Okay.
And I'm back again.
You're on a Star Wars kick.
Maybe.
Is this your road to Rise of Skywalker?
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe I'm enjoying Star Wars right now because I deleted Twitter off my phone.
Oh.
So, you like Tom King, divorce yourself of all Star Wars, anybody else, and you're okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. I saw Dr. Sleep. So Dr. Sleep...
We discussed it
at
the top of the show.
Okay.
You're probably foggy on it because it's nights.
Yeah. I got Disney Plus. So I've watched The Mandalorian.
Oh, and?
It's fine. My wife is liking it more than I am, even though I like it, but it's hard for me to shake this, like, the Disney-ness of it. There's some, like, cute elements that I'm like, this has to be the Disney hand in it all. So, that's it.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything new and fun.
All right.
Excited.
I've been rewatching Star Trek Discovery with my wife's sister and her husband because they'd never seen it. So it's been kind of fun to rediscover
Some people refer to them as sister-in-law.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the Star Trek short treks have been coming out monthly, so those have been a lot of fun.
Okay.
They do like a little 10-15 minute episode each month, like leading up to the new season, and they've been really cool. The last one not so great, but yeah, that's been fun. And I'm digging Batwoman on the CW.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, how are we doing on time? You want to do New York Times bestseller list? All right, book news.
All right, book news. New York Times bestsellers list for hardcover fiction. Number 10, Olive Again.
Yeah.
By Elizabeth Strout.
What a name
In
that is.
In a follow-up to the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Olive Kittredge, new relationships, including a second marriage, are encountered in a seaside town in Maine.
Spoiler alert if you haven't read Olive Kittredge. My wife did and loved it, and I was like, hey, there's a sequel. And she was like, I don't... She wasn't really interested. Didn't really think it was a book that required a sequel. So
you know what? Let's just skip ahead for a second. I can tell you that the Revenant, or whatever... Not the Revenant. What's it called? The Testaments. The sequel to Handmaid's Tale is not here anymore.
Shocker.
So, weird.
Yeah.
What was the other sequel that we were talking about? Oh, the Find Me. Also not here. Look, maybe making a sequel 40 years after your book came out isn't the best option anymore.
Maybe not.
Maybe To Kill a Mockingbird killed that trend a bird.
Yeah.
Number 9, The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. A sibling relationship is impacted when the family goes from poverty to wealth. And then back again.
Oh, you hate to hear
over
that.
the course of many decades.
Hate to hear that.
You can now watch The Dutch House on ABC.
Yeah.
The Connors.
No, you can't.
The Connors.
I don't get it.
Because they were poor, but then they won the lottery, and now they're poor again.
You're right.
Why did I watch Roseanne as a kid?
I did too, and I don't...
Was that... Why did we do that?
I don't know.
I look back on that, I'm like, why would... I should not...
I can't tell you.
Number 8, The Institute by Stephen King. Children with special talents are abducted and sequestered in an institution where the sinister staff seeks to extract their gifts through harsh methods. This has been here longer than I feel like it should be. Even only 9 weeks. It's still longer than I think.
Are we getting into the Christmas bump? I don't know.
Oh, you think?
Maybe.
We'll see. Number 7. New this week, The Family Upstairs. Lisa Jewell. Libby Jones learns to identify... Oh, no, wait. Libby Jones learns to identify...
You said the same thing.
Oh, my gosh. Libby Jones learns the identity
yes.
of her parents and inherits a London mansion.
Ooh.
But this comes with a mystery of multiple murders.
Uh-oh.
The Giver of Stars is at number 6. This is Jojo Moyes. In Depression-era America, 5 women refuse to be cowed by men or convention as they deliver books throughout the mountains of Kentucky. I actually never knew Kentucky was mountainy. This is the first... I guess I always thought it was very plainsy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we drove through it a lot when I was a kid. I remember the rock face and things.
Number 5, The Night Fire by Michael Connolly. Harry Bosch and Renee Ballard return to take up a case that held their attention of Bosch's mentor.
Ooh.
That mentor, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Of Star Wars fame.
Huh.
Number 4, Where the Crawdads Sing. Delia Owens in a quiet town of North Carolina.
Don't tell him. If you don't know what this book's about, you don't get to hear it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Woman in a Marsh is accused of murder.
Darn it.
Number 3, new this week, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern.
Oh. So, now I haven't read this, but I was a big fan of her first, I think it was her first book, Night Circus. That was. You familiar with Night Circus? I feel like you might enjoy that.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's a romance.
I guess.
It's always labeled in romance.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, it's about like different factions of magicians. So I guess there is kind of a Romeo and Juliet thing there, but I wouldn't really say that the romance is the driving force behind that book.
You know what it is?
That's why I'm on the fence about those stickers, because sometimes it gets that label and you're never going to read it.
Are there any steamy love scenes?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You called your book The Night Circus?
Yeah.
It's Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah.
You don't have any steamy love scenes in that?
Well, maybe I'm wrong. It's been a while.
Oh, okay. Zachary Ezra Rollins fights to save a labyrinthine underground respiratory of stories.
Okay.
Say that with me.
Labyrinthine?
Yeah. All right. Underground respiratory of stories.
Repository.
What'd I say? Respiratory.
Respiratory.
What's a respiratory?
If you have like a respiratory virus.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a repository.
Actually. Yep.
Yeah. Number 2, The Guardians by John Grisham.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Post, a lawyer and Episcopal minister, antagonizes some ruthless killers when he takes a wrongful conviction case. And
I think we're going to be seeing this one for a while because that's absolutely a dad Christmas gift.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a dad. If somebody wants to buy it for me, that's fine. I'll take it. I'll read it. But I think we're going to be seeing that one.
Number 1, Blue Moon by Lee Child. Jack Reacher gets caught up in a turf war between Ukrainian and Albanian gangs. I was just listening to...
Stay in your lane, Jack Reacher.
I was just listening...
Stay in your lane.
...to Western Stars by Bruce Springsteen earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a song on there called Hitchhiking, and the guy's just like, only have what I can carry or something. I'm like, this song's about Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher, toothbrush and underwear.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
You know what's not here, which I meant... Because I haven't read it, so I can't do my bookmark on it yet. Okay. I put a hold on it today. This weird Michael Crichton book.
Yes.
That has come out.
Yeah, so I don't know if you follow us on Twitter, we were having like a whole Twitter conversation about this because I was in a bookstore and there on the shelf is the Andromeda, what's it called? The
Andromeda Evolution.
Andromeda Evolution with Michael Crichton in big letters. And I'm like, what the heck? Where has Sherry Crichton dug this up?
Yeah.
But no, it's who's the author?
This is by Daniel Wilson.
Who wrote
Robopocalypse.
Yeah.
And a Clockwork book, I can't remember.
And we were very puzzled by this because first, it completely snuck by us. And it's because
it came out of nowhere.
On our standing orders, it only lists Daniel Wilson. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't recognize any connection to Michael Crichton. But there has been almost no talk about this.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything.
No.
So I was, you know what? I was flabbergasted when I saw this.
Michael Crichton surprising us 9 years after his death.
I guess
Not even. No, 11 years.
Wow. So here's what's puzzling to me, and we talked about this a little bit off mic, but Andromeda Strain?
Yeah,
You're going to do a sequel to a book, Andromeda Strain?
Yep. That's bizarre. Unlike Pirate's Latitude or Pirate's Latitude or Dragon Teeth, this isn't Micro. This isn't an unfinished novel that was dug up and then somebody helped complete it. This is just It's that Tom Clancy.
Yeah, Tom Clancy, William Johnstone, Robert B. Parker.
Yeah. It's just like this character's world, this author's world now being written by this person.
It's kind of just the brand now.
Yeah.
It's become a brand.
Michael Crichton is now, he's joining that wealth of... It's taken him a while.
I don't understand. I mean, the Andromeda Strain has been adapted multiple times into other things. The book is a little bit of an oddity because it's the first that's actually... and please go back and listen to our many Michael Crichton episodes, but it's an oddity in that it's the first book that he's written as Michael Crichton. It's very science heavy. Yeah. That book is like 40% graphs.
Yeah. The book is so like not action packed that the person who directed the movie was the cinematographer of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. So like the set design, or maybe the set designer, I can't remember. He's related. Basically, the set designs are almost similar, like the white sterile walls in both movies. Yeah. So like that's the kind of book Andromeda Strain was. It's just it's bizarre to turn that one into a sequel.
It's very puzzling.
I'm gonna read it. Daniel Wilson's
Well, I think we're obligated to do an episode about it, frankly.
When I read Daniel Wilson's Robopocalypse, I was actually like, I think my Goodreads review even says like it read like Michael Crichton's like later work, something more akin to like Prey or something. Well, it was a very he had a Michael Crichton way of telling that story, and so it seems like a good fit.
He's on the record as a major Crichton fan, like aficionado, growing up reading Michael Crichton.
Yeah, well, I could see that when, reading his book. So, but it's just very bizarre that it's happening, and now I guess we have Congo 2 to look forward to.
Yes.
Sphere 2. Yep. So, if you haven't... Cube,
Cube.
If you haven't, on my Twitter page at Dust vs. Tweak, I came up with a sequel for every single one of Michael Crichton's books, I gotta tell you what, there's some real winners in there.
You thought they were very funny.
Any favorites? Some of them are deep thinkers.
No, not a one.
Congo 2 was Speak No Evil because the gorillas speak in sign language, but also the monkey thing, see no evil, speak no evil.
The problem is it's such a narrow crowd.
Yeah,
that you're playing to
I know.
With that one. So,
I'm playing on the crowd of big Michael Crichton aficionados who are also like, oh, that's funny because it references that part of the book.
I very much appreciate your dedication to detail on that one. All right, is that going to do it for book news?
Yeah, I guess, until we read the book.
That's right. Okay, well then let's get to our author spotlight.
All the Books presents Author Spotlight.
Today, Eric and I had the pleasure of sitting down and chatting with author Mel Gilden. So,
do you think our authors who we spotlight and then they listen to this episode are as freaked out by that theme as I am?
It's really left an impression on you. I like it. I think it's a fun thing.
Well, I think it was the end credits of Dr. Sleep.
I like to think that Mel Gilden enjoyed that author spotlight theme. Anyway, this is an author that I've been familiar with for a lot of my life because I grew up loving the show Beverly Hills 90210.
You don't say.
Long before I should have watched this show.
Like Roseanne.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a stack. I had a stack of 90210 novelizations written by Mel Gilden.
Were you watching 90210 like contemporary, like season 1?
Not season 1. No, probably more like season 2 or 3.
And that's 92.
Yeah.
And in 92, you're how old? 8?
9.
You're watching 90210 at 9.
I can't. Yes. This is what happened. I know, this is what happened. So, Kendra, a regular guest here on the podcast, Kendra and I have been doing a 90210 rewatch spotlight, and we've been going through it. I've been rereading these novelizations as we get to the episode.
As her husband, I would like to offer up my apologies to you for her not understanding the Goodnight John Boy reference.
Oh, yes, she did.
She said that on the podcast. I was like, oh, dear.
But that's a different podcast. If you're interested in 90210, you can pop over to 902 and Here We Go, where Kendra and I discuss the show and chat with Mel a little bit about writing the novelizations. Right. But anyway, cut to later in life when I picked up his Star Trek books. Yeah. The first of those I read, one we're going to talk about in the interview, is Boogeyman. So I read all of his Star Trek books, several of the 90210 books, and you've read some of his juvenile books. So we reached out, and he was pleased to talk to us, and so here it is. Let's get into our interview with Mel Gilden. Well, let's just start at the very beginning. Why don't you tell us what the very first thing you sold that made it so you were a paid professional writer?
Oh, the very very first thing I sold, well, I was at Clarion in 1960. Do you know what Clarion is?
No.
It's a science fiction writers workshop that was in Clarion, Pennsylvania. And we had wonderful teachers. We had Joanna Russ and Harlan Ellison and Fritz Leiber and just all kinds of great folks. Mm-hmm. And that's where I sold my first story. I sold a story called What About Us Grills, which was a very short story that I got an idea from in a bathroom.
Really?
Yeah, it was a public bathroom, and it had 3 lines of dialogue. It said, I like girls, and the other one said, I like boys, and the third one said, what about us grills? Anyway, it all made sense at the time. Anyway, that was my first professional sale. I made $50.
And where did that go? Was that published in a magazine or journal?
It was published in the first Clarion anthology.
I see.
Which still exists. I mean, you could probably go on Amazon and buy a used copy.
So was your background before that, like, was sci-fi your main area of interest?
Oh yeah. I've always been a sci-fi guy. You got to realize that by the time I got into going to Clarion, it was 1970. So I was in my early 30s or late 20s.
Okay.
I had been watching television in the mid 1950s. So I was watching Space Patrol and Tom Corbett's Space Cadet and Captain Video, and these were the shows that formed me. They made me what I am today.
What about those? I mean, what about those captured your imagination so much?
I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is that they just grabbed me by the throat and would not let go. You know, there were some guys said, "Oh, I only watch westerns,"
mm-hmm.
or "I only watch detective stories," or "I only watch sports." I don't talk to them much. They're sports guys.
Good call.
I don't talk to them. But I know that when I was watching these science fiction programs on early television, they grabbed me and they would not let go. And by the time Star Trek came along, I had been a science fiction fan for many, many years, mm-hmm. and I had read lots and lots of books. I was really lucky. The library that we used to go to, Mom would take us to the library every Saturday, and there was this big wall, and it was all science fiction.
Nice.
And I read everything.
Were you reading those science fiction books as a kid then?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. So which books or authors were really striking a chord for you or inspiring you? Because I know in your book, Outer Space and All That Junk, you mention Have Spacesuit Will Travel.
Oh yes. Well, I've always been a big Heinlein fan, and
sure.
The Scribner's Juveniles, the stuff that he wrote into the 50s and early 60s. Mm-hmm. I read all of them.
Okay.
And they are some of the few. Most of the books that I read, that I purchased, I had paperbacks. But occasionally I would have a book that I loved so much that even though I already had a paperback, I bought hardback books. And that's what happened with the Heinlein Juveniles.
Okay.
I just bought them all.
Right.
I bought them all. How Space It Will Travel. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Star Trek as one of the things that you were a fan of. How is it that you got in the orbit of Star Trek for writing your Star Trek novels? That's
a really good question. I do know this. I think that I had a lot of friends who had been writing Star Trek novels.
Okay.
And I had been a professional writer by that time because I know that they would not look at my stuff if I hadn't been a pro.
Okay.
So I just, and I knew that I was going to be in New York City for something else. I had an agent in New York and I was selling books that were not Star Trek novels.
Okay.
And I just I wrote a letter. I sent a phone call to. This is long before the internet,
Sure.
And I called the guy who was the editor at the time, and I said, "Can I come and talk to you? I want to pitch you an idea for a Star Trek novel." And he had heard of me. And I think that was what let me into the office, is the fact that he had heard of me and perhaps even read some of my stuff.
Okay.
And so when I went into his office and I said, "Well, what about this?" And I had like a paragraph. Mm-hmm. And he said, "That's great. Go do it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that worked out pretty well.
So was that the Starship Trap? Was that your first?
No, the Starship Trip, I think I wrote second. The first one that I wrote was Boogeyman.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which was a TNG, a Next Generation novel. And I was really interested in writing something where Wesley was a really good character.
Well, that would have been a nice change.
Well, I always thought that Will Wheaton had gotten a raw deal.
Yeah, that's fair. He agrees.
That, because I have seen him later on other shows, not Star Trek shows, but doing other things. And he was always a terrifically professional guy. And I always thought he was really good. And the fact that he was on this show and he was always doing things that a kid that age shouldn't do, no matter how smart he was, and driving Picard crazy, And so I decided that I was just going to write one where he was a better character than that. And I think I did a good job.
That was the first that I'd read of yours, Boogeyman, quite a while back.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Boogeyman was the first one, and then after that I wrote the Starship Trap.
Did you have a preference for what era you were writing in, or were these assignments, or how did that?
Oh, I've always been a Trek classic guy.
Okay.
If it's got Kirk, Spock, and McCoy in it, I'm right there.
Agreed.
Those are my guys. Those are my guys. And I kind of got to like the Next Generation people after a while. And I like them well enough. And I say, yeah, I like those guys, and I want to see this new show, Picard.
Yeah.
And it all looks really good. But when it comes down to where my emotional heart lies, I think it's just with the old guys.
Yeah.
Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and those are my guys.
And you also did a couple of Deep Space Nine books for the younger readers. How did that happen?
I did 2 Deep Space Nine books. One of them I did with a friend of mine. He had an idea, and he was a pretty good writer. He had been writing cartoons for a long time.
Okay.
But he didn't feel that he could actually write a Star Trek novel by himself. So he and I wrote one together. And then I wrote one on my own, which was called Cardassian Imps. And the thing about the DS9 novels is they were all kids' books.
Right.
I don't think they ever did any adult books for Deep Space Nine.
I think they did eventually, but I think these are the ones that started it.
So I wrote Cardassian Imps, and I was pretty pleased with that. I think it turned out all right.
Yeah, those are fun. Yeah. I mean, that's nice because Deep Space Nine had children in the lead, so you could actually do that sort of thing.
That's what I did. With the children who were in the lead become the heroes of the books. Yeah, I think that worked out pretty well. That worked out fine.
You tend to write towards the younger audience, whether it be the juvenile age or maybe the young adult age. What particular challenges did that have when either if you're writing something that's an adaptation like Star Trek or you're writing your own work like Outer Space and all that junk?
Challenges. It's a funny thing about that. I just kind of write the book that I would want to read. So, there are a lot more challenges now. Because you have to say, when you send it away to somebody, you have to say, is it a middle grade? Is it a young adult?
Right.
And you have to tell them going in. And I didn't have to do that. I'd send it to my agent, and she'd say, oh, this is good. And then she'd send it to somebody, and they would buy it.
Right.
And there was, to my knowledge, nobody ever asked me, is this a middle grade or a YA?
Right.
That was only something that came later. There is a difference, and there was a difference even back then, but they knew what it was when they read it.
Right.
I didn't have to tell them. They could figure it out for themselves.
Right.
When I started out writing kids' books, and I said, oh, this is for children. This is for children. Then my hero was Daniel Pinkwater. Daniel Pinkwater has been writing kids' books now for he's 4 or 5 years older than I am. So he's been doing it for a long, long time. But I was on Hour 25, which was a science fiction radio program. We were on from 10 to midnight every Friday. And judging by what I heard on a sample of your program, it was very much like your program.
Oh.
There was me and this other guy, Mike Hodel, who had been doing it at that point for, 20, 25 years. He was one of the founders. And I was only there because the original co-host went off to do something else, and he said, would you like to do it? He said this to me, and I said, yeah, I'd come and do that. Anyway, he people used to send me stuff. Sometimes it was a bit of news, and sometimes it was a joke or whatever it was. And a young lady who was a fan of the show sent me a copy of a book by Daniel Pinkwater called The Stockholm Boys and the Avocado of Death. Okay, that was the title.
That's a great title.
It's a great title, and all his books have a great title. Another one of his books is Lizard Music, and another just wonderful thing, Fat Men from Space, just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And if you haven't read him and you want to laugh yourself silly, get a Daniel Pinkwater novel, because he's a funny guy and a terrific writer. Anyway, I read The Stockholm Boys and the Avocado of Death, and I was just once again grabbed by the throat and would not let go, and I read all his Pinkwater stuff. So when I sat down to write The Return of Captain Conker, I did my best to make it look like a Daniel Pinkwater novel.
Oh, okay.
You know, that was my interest. And I go back and I look at it occasionally saying, well, you know, this is pretty close. This is all right. It's not as good as Mr. Pinkwater's stuff, but it's okay. Anyway, that's how I got into it, is because that girl sent me a copy of the Snarkot Boys.
That's interesting. You know, I'm always curious when, you know, you have such a prolific background. I mean, you've done so many different things. A lot of original works, a lot of original works working within established universes like Star Trek or other things like that. How does that, as a writer, like, how do you approach those things? Is there something sort of relaxing about writing within an established universe, or do you prefer just going off and doing your own thing? Like, how do you approach those two?
Well, I think it depends on what I did the last time.
Okay.
You know, if I was in somebody else's universe last time, then I'm going to want to do something original. And if I just started with something original, then I'm going to want to go to somebody else's universe. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about Star Trek is that I love Star Trek.
Sure.
You know, I really am a Trekkie. Don't tell anybody. I really am a Trekkie. So if I have an opportunity to write a Star Trek novel, I love doing it, because I don't know if you read The Starship Trap.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But I hope that it looked to you like the dialogue, for instance, was actual. These are things that the characters on the TV show would have said. You know, I did my best to make it look like a version of the TV show. Mm-hmm. And I had fun doing that. You know, McCoy and Spock sniping at each other, and Captain Kirk saying, well, I want to talk to this woman, but I can't do it. And then there was a dinner party, I believe, and I enjoyed writing that, because this allowed me to have the characters talk like themselves without having to worry about whether the warp engines were working or not. Right. You know, and so when it comes to Star Trek, you know, I would do it again. If somebody wants to hire me to write another Star Trek novel,
you're in.
I would do it again. But what happens is, and this has happened to me a couple of times, is that I get hired to write a particular kind of book, and I say, oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I can do that. And then when it comes time to write another one, the person who hired me, usually a woman, the woman who hired me has quit her job, and the lady who is now running that part of the publication, they don't know me. Right. They don't know me. They don't know who I am. I say, gee, I'd really like to do another one of those. And they'll say, well, we'll call you. Did they call you? And you say, no. Well, they didn't call me either. You know, and that happened more than once. Almost everybody that I dealt with in the 70s and 80s, by the time the 90s came along, and I was still working, and that made things a lot more difficult.
Just the turnover in employees.
Turnover at the publishing house, right. You know, and that made things very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, and I would go in there and I'd say, well, I wrote this and I wrote that and I wrote the other thing, and they'd say, okay, fine, but they had their own list of people that they liked, you know, and those were the people that they were hiring.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would get lucky, but more often than not, they would hire their own people.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about how when you were writing the original Star Trek characters like Kirk and Spock, you were trying to emulate the shows, but at the time you would have been writing the Next Gen books in Deep Space Nine, those characters wouldn't have been so well known or cemented in the public conscious. Was it harder to write those characters then, without a few decades of?
No, I had a good time with them, because by the time I got to them, I've been watching a couple of seasons.
Okay.
Of them, you know, they were not brand new at that point. They were 3-4 seasons in. Mm-hmm. And so I knew them almost as well as you knew, the Kirk, Spock, McCoy triumvirate. And if you go back and read, for instance, Cardassian Imps, there's a scene in which Odo and Quark are having an argument. Mm-hmm. And I go back and I read that occasionally, and I say, that's just what those guys talk like. Mm-hmm. That's what they would be saying to each other. And nobody that I know has ever said that I was wrong. Maybe they're just being polite. I don't know. But it seems to me that I did just as well with them as I did with the original trio. But that's just me. I can't tell. I can't tell. But I will say this, and I've been very lucky in this respect, and that is I go back and I read books that I wrote maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm always surprised at how good they are. Am I allowed to say that?
We'll allow it. Yeah, we'll allow it.
Am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
Because if they weren't, I like to be very honest. Because none of my books are first drafts. Everything is a second or a third or a fourth draft. Thank God for the computer.
Well, looking back into your back catalog, I mean, there's you have quite a list on your website, and I think there's more even beyond that. Do you have some particular favorites? Is there a series or a specific title? If somebody now listening to this podcast wanted to go and sort of dive into the Mel Gilden archives and rediscover one of those books, what would you like them to find?
Well, I wrote a whole series of books called Fifth Grade Monsters. Mm-hmm. And I must have written, a dozen of those. And they were about a real little normal kid and his friends, one of whom was kind of a Frankenstein monster, and one of whom was a werewolf, and one of whom was, I had somebody else. Anyway, they were all different classic monsters. Mm-hmm. And I really got into it. The first one was hard to write, because I said, what am I going to say about these guys? I don't know what to say about them. But by the time I got to the second or third book, I was more comfortable with them as characters, and I had written down 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different ideas, just a line or two, and that gave me an opening into what I should write next. And it was great. It was wonderful fun, and I know that some of them are better than others, mm-hmm. but I also know that even the bad ones aren't too bad.
Right.
And it's this series is called The Fifth Grade Monsters, and I've gotten fan mail from people who are, in their 40s or 50s, and they find my email address online, mm-hmm. and they write to me and they say, I really love that book. Did you write any more? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, no, I don't own the rights to that.
Oh.
So I think that's pretty good. Now, if you're looking for something a little more adult, you could try Surfing Samurai Robots.
Great title.
Yeah. Now, Surfing Samurai Robots is the first book of 3.
Okay.
And but it was written by. I was hired by a guy named Byron Price, Preiss. And Byron Price, I call him the Walt Disney of publishing, because he was strictly a packager. He would have an idea, or he would purchase a piece of cover art, and then he would think of who will do the best job for me on this particular idea. And so he hired me. He was the one that hired me for the Fifth Grade Monsters.
Okay.
He was the one that hired me for Surfing Samurai Robots. As a matter of fact, Surfing Samurai Robots, he sent me a copy of the cover, and he said, here, write me a book. And that was kind of interesting. So I was pretty pleased about that. And then, this is not a joke, Byron was on his way to synagogue one Saturday morning, and he got run over by a bus.
Wow.
That's not a joke. That's true. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Not only because I liked Byron, but because as long as he lived, he always kept me busy, and he always kept me working, and I always made money. And as soon as he was gone, the money ran out.
What a shock that must have been.
Yeah, that was a shocker. Yeah, it was a real shocker. It was too bad, because I liked Byron. He was really a very nice fellow. And he's as far as I can tell, because I've been looking for somebody else who does that same kind of work, who's a packager, you know?
Yeah.
And I cannot find anybody who does that same work.
Huh.
So, you know, I was a big fan of Byron's, not only because I liked him, but because he was this Walt Disney kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't do the actual writing himself or the actual painting himself, but he always knew who to hire to do the best job with the idea.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so, Surfing Samurai Robots is a kind of a fantasy Raymond Chandler kind of novel, which is kind of, because I'm a big Chandler fan.
Okay.
So it's about this alien who comes to Earth to be a detective.
Okay.
And so that's what the book is about. He solves crimes here on Earth, and he lives in a house with a bunch of surfers down at Malibu, and that's what it is. And then there were 2 more books, and they both featured the same detective, and I thought that they turned out pretty well.
Well, nice. Thanks for talking to us this afternoon. If people want to find out a little bit more about your work, where's the best place to find you online?
Well, you know, www.melgilden.com. So that's really the best place.
Okay.
A lot of these books are available from Wildside Press. I have 3 or 4 books, some of which, no, they're all actually kids' books. They're all actually, and when I say kid, I don't mean small children. I mean either middle grade or YA.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, you know, junior high and above.
Right.
So that's what I think of as kids' books. But I'm pretty pleased. And you just go to Wildside Press and look up my name, and you'll see a whole list of books that are available.
Okay. We'll share the link on our page as well, so people can find it that way too.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks again to Mel for the time. The books that he mentioned, you can find at Wildside Press. Available ebooks, print books, you can find them there, Wildside Press. The website, again, melgilden.com, so I hope you check that out. A lot of interesting information about things we didn't even get into, including his background as a television writer and many other things on there. The website, again, and if you want to contact him, you can find that at melgilden.com. So thanks once again to Mel. Hope you go and check out some of his newer fiction that he mentioned in the episode.
And I don't think he listens to this, so I'll have to extend my thanks. Will Wheaton would also like to thank Mel Gilden for saying such nice things about the character.
Trying
Wesley.
to rehabilitate the Wesley Crusher character. Yes, that's it's a noble work.
Yeah. I've been doing that at work though, because I have that sweater that everybody says is my Wesley Crusher sweater. Very
absolutely.
80s. Yeah, and I've been just trying to do the best of my job.
Absolutely.
I come to work, I'm like, Nick, and you just yell, "Shut up, Eric!"
Yeah. Anyway, we have some of Mel Gilden's books in our collection too, both the juvenile books, the Star Trek books, and any that we don't have, we can certainly connect you with them. So please drop us a line on Twitter at All the Books Show, and we'll share the links to that on the Twitter as well. Let's talk library news. We're coming up on the end of the year. We're getting down to the wire. So book clubs, we're doing. Little Women, as I mentioned, that's December 3rd. We're going to be discussing that.
Little Women, Big Talk.
I always associate that as a Christmas book because there's so many Christmassy scenes in it.
There are. Are there like 3?
Yeah, there are several. So we're going to be talking about that in early December. That way, if you're not ready to be reading Christmas books, it's kind of an easy way into that.
Do you think you could maybe get Kirsten Dunst for an interview?
I couldn't keep it together. She was my childhood crush. I can't talk to Kirsten
Winona Ryder then?
I can't. Sure. Yeah. I could do that.
Apologies to Winona Ryder.
I could do that. No. I mean,
Christian Bale.
Pass.
What?
Yeah. So anyway, we're talking Little Women on December 3rd, and then we're going to be doing one of the Royal Spinus, the Christmas books. I can't remember what it's called, but it's by Reese Bowen, and we're going to be doing that as our Christmas mystery book club. So take a look at that. We've got the Nutcracker coming back.
Underneath the mystery toe?
Maybe. And we've committed to doing our Christmas book club with Bo Hutchings.
No, but so I am being held.
Yeah, you feel it's an obligation. You're fulfilling your professional duty.
A hostage situation.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Go.
I'll cop to that. We're going to be doing that. Bo's going to be back for the Nutcracker, so you can catch that. This is our 6th production of the Nutcracker. Lots in store for this one, so I hope you can join us for that. And our ecumenical choir's back. You've got teen night. We've got Christmas movies coming out.
We're showing Dora in the Lost City of Gold. I don't know. The new live action Dora the Explorer
and
movie.
This is a Tomb Raider prequel. Is that correct?
I guess. It got a lot of good reviews, so I don't know. We're showing that December 6th at 4:30. I have no idea what to expect. It's,
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of the All the Book Show. Our thanks again to Mel Gilden, and the website is melgilden.com. The books are available from Wildside Press. I hope you check those out, and we'll see you next week.